I mess up with the word out there,
If they
right?
want to inquire about how to become a dialysis tech, numbers on the screen.
Yeah, so I don't see the number yet, Paco, but we'll throw up the number. Oh, there it is. Just below our logo, you've got the number for the training institution, dialysis education services. There's a shortage of techs too.
Absolutely, yes.
You know, even, especially here in Southern California. I checked the other day, and it's close to like 200 openings right here in Southern California.
Yeah.
So it kind of drives me back to, like, I just want to tell a story because Richard will, I don't know if he's going to blow me up on this one, but when I started my first business, that leap, right? I was like, I remember one day being on a construction site because I was working in construction while I was trying to open the business. And doing all these applications with the state and telling everybody, hey, when I get this thing, I'm gonna quit. And they're like, you're full of shit, Morales. Like you're gonna be out here stuck with us doing this, and you're gonna be dirty. You know, your hands are gonna be dirty for the rest of your life. And I got my approval one day, and I quit. Right, I quit. Yeah, I went straight for it. But you know, looking at the biggest struggles for me in that business, like we talked about some of the staffing and the compliance and stuff in acute. For education at the time, there was not really any openings. Like people could fill their dialysis tech spots. I know Richard was one of them because that's how we ran across each other. It's like, yeah, we got it covered. We don't need a connection to a school, right? And at the time, there were like 20-something schools in Southern California teaching dialysis to technicians. Today, there's like 4 that are approved, right? Today, there's a shortage. Today, there's a need for connectivity between vocation and education, right? It's a little bit slow. You know, we've seen a big change over the years where I was literally like pounding on the head or on the door of Richard's company one year, right, Richard? Like pounding it down like I'm a crackhead looking for crack, right? like, hey, I know you got some in there.
We don't want to go down this.
It's okay, man. It's okay. It's okay. I hope everybody's watching and we can talk about this, right? But
no, I'm gonna save it when I'm in studio and we can have this conversation.
You're listening to Musings with Morales, brought to you by Dialysis Education Services.
Welcome to Musings with Morales. Actually starting a few minutes early here tonight, but I guess it was the angst of getting the chance to finally sit down with you, Maria Damian, our special guest tonight. Let me just give a couple high-level items, and then I have so much to learn, and so does our audience, about your story and the many hats that you wear. But I know you from a common passion.
Yes.
Hemodialysis.
Both our first love.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, you're one of these people that, if I were to talk about today, looking at the new minds of modeling quality care that is beneficial to the people who need it most, the patients, but also to the different layers of healthcare that are providing at hospitals, skilled nursing, dialysis facilities, things like this. You're one of those people that I'm watching in awe, and it's kind of difficult to track the pace because you're moving so quickly, honestly. So you're a registered nurse.
Yes, sir.
You are an entrepreneur on many levels, but that was the common denominator for us, was dialysis. I think entrepreneurship is also a common denominator for us because we both think about that a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But other hats that you wear that I can say at a high level are entrepreneur in the field of entertainment, both in music and film, or is it both?
Yes.
Both in music?
I'm just barely starting with the film side, but I started as a producer of concerts and shows.
That's
Yes.
so much work. I mean,
I know it is, yeah.
event planning as a whole, but then when you're talking about different parties, when you're talking about entertainer, producers, promoters, venues, and then
a lot
all
of
of
work.
it seems just staggeringly crazy. Yeah. And then just one other that I know of is some participation in maybe some of our history here in California.
Yes.
And is it a board position, or are you also one of the founders of that? What's your involvement there?
Actually, this you're talking about the California Route 66 Museum. So it started actually when we were trying to find a location. We were supposed to start a school for dialysis. Be your competitor.
Well, I'm glad you didn't do that because you are fiercely dangerous in the world of business.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. But anyway, it ended up we were in that location, Victorville.
Okay.
So to make the story short, I became involved in the revitalization of roots of Victorville, wherein some of my partners, I have partners that we were involved in part ownership of like the old theater. Some of them bought the building. So the downtown, my partners bought some properties there, and
Okay.
I have been involved in just a few percentage, not a whole lot, but just enough to support them. And then we were fortunate enough to buy a lot next to the museum. And when at the time the owner of the museum they wanted to retire,
Okay.
and they offered it to our group. So actually, my involvement in the museum, it's also part of the ownership. So we have a nonprofit organization that runs the museum. So I'm part of my position is a COO, and at the same time, we have ownership of that nonprofit organization that owns the museum.
Oh, wow.
So very fortunate. I mean, like I'm even now I'm still in awe. Like how did I become a part of something that's really big?
Yeah, I got to say that I want to get those hats again and just kind of understand the different titles. But when I think about people who are doing big things, they're typically, in my experience, and I know maybe there's some argument out here, some people say that, well, you can only focus on one thing.
Yes.
You can only be good at one thing. And if you think you can do more, you're lying to yourself, right? That's what some people would say. Like
The jack of all trades, but master of none.
I think that's very, like, a lot of people feel that way.
Yes.
Like, there's no way you could be successful as a nurse, Maria, and own a business and be involved in entertainment and produce shows and things like this and be a successful preserver of California. There's no way you could do that, right? But I found the opposite, that people who do big things, they often are like doing a lot of things.
Part of the secret, or not really secret, but part of my success in whatever I do is partnering with the right people. Having those people believe in your capability and what you can do.
Yeah.
And having those right people to support you in whatever you wanted to do. So establishing those, good relationship with people that believe in you and you have the same goals and you have the same work ethics, it can go a long way to you being successful.
Well, today you are successful, and I want to make sure that we bring this message that, you look for the right people to support you, but that also comes with you being the right person to support them, right?
Oh, yeah, thank you.
My God, like, I think watching your success, I got to hear about this. So with that, we're going to go back to history, but I got to get a part of this. Like,
Yeah.
you've got a fairly new, age-wise, acute hemodialysis company. Is that the right way to say it?
Yes.
Okay. So that means you service what kind of clients?
So I started that company during the pandemic,
Okay.
December of 2020, and we do inpatient hemodialysis. So those chronic patients, those that go to the clinic when they get sick and they go to the hospital, we are the ones taking care of them. So it started when I was working as coordinator, in one of the company, and then they decided during the pandemic that they don't want to do it anymore.
Okay.
And so they gave me that opportunity. At the time, I'm a little scared. Like, why start a business when there's a pandemic?
Right.
But at the same time, I saw it as an opportunity wherein the community has a need for a dialysis company.
Yeah.
That they're not just reliant on those big company, but also somebody that might be able to also help out, deliver the same level of care, if not more.
Right.
at the same time, be relevant during those times that we really need the service. So as scared as I was, and I never had any experience being an entrepreneur. I've always just worked as a nurse or, charge nurse, but never as a entrepreneur. So what I did is I asked for the support of my other nurses that I work with, and I tried to see who has the strong points, who has the strong characteristics that might be able to help me. And it started with us like 10 nurses, and we start the company. And from having 2 contracts, we were able to grow it to now up to 12 hospitals.
That's incredible. So you're talking about 2020, you said?
2020, and by after 2 years, I was able to get 12 contracts.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's really incredible. To open a business is hard enough.
Yes.
I think it's a very glamorous thing today. Like, oh, don't work, own your own business, right? And we've even had guests that came here and said outright, like, don't go to school. These are, again, we want to hear everybody's perspective here, right? So we'll stay neutral on that. But we've heard people say that, right?
Yes.
When I think of opening a business, and because I've done it myself, it's really scary because
It
you're
is.
like, the scary part is yourself.
Right. Yes.
you
You're your biggest enemy, right? Because you have these doubts and can I do it? Like in the middle of the night, you would just wake up. It's like, can I do it? This is big responsibility.
Yeah.
We deal with patients' lives, people's lives, and it's something that's not just for somebody that has a faint heart.
Well, tell
you
me
need to be
about that.
brave.
You've been a nurse for how long?
I started my career in 1992.
Okay, so you've been a nurse for a little while.
For a while, yeah, 30-something years. Yeah, but dialysis, I started my dialysis career in 2009.
2009. Okay, so 15 years of
yes,
dialysis.
yes.
You've been doing this prior to your entrepreneurship
Yes,
opportunity.
right.
You've taken care of patients, I'm assuming, in chronic and hospitals.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, when I say chronic, in centers where
Yes.
they're more stabilized, they're
Right.
going into their appointment, leaving their appointment, then inpatient in the hospital, where they're there until they've worked their bout of whatever they're in the hospital for, right?
Yes.
So you've had that lens of people's lives on the line.
Yes.
Let me ask a question about becoming that business owner and then taking that partnership with 9 other nurses, and then what does that feel like? Because and let me just preface, for me, it's like one of the biggest weights on my back or my shoulder since I become a business owner is being able to take care of the people that are partnering with me.
Yes.
And having a business that's going to sustain a livelihood.
Right. Yes.
So tell me, what's the scary side for you? Because you've had that patient side of it where it's
Right.
like there's complicated treatments, but that side of it's maybe new to you.
You're right. So I think the hardest part is, because like I said, patient's life is dependent on us. Like one false move, you're always going to be responsible one way or another.
Yeah.
So I guess for me, the biggest, one of my biggest fear would be, I don't want to endanger my patient's life. I always want to be able to deliver the best patient care that I can, and have that as a business model for my company. Like, we should always be able to deliver and make sure that we're compliant, with JCO and Department
Yeah.
of Health, that
Yeah.
you don't get in trouble with your documentation and your patient safety, which is very, very important. And of course, like I said, choosing the correct partners to be able to go in this kind of business.
Yeah.
But at the same time, having those fear, you need to be able to get over that fear so you can be effective leader, because they count on me to lead them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was our first contract, and then but that contract is only like 6 months because they went in-house. But moving into the contract, we already know that this is just short term. But it was short term, but at the same time, we were able to identify what are the things that can really help us.
Yeah.
It's a learning curve for us. Like it made us like realize a lot of things that eventually help me and the company grow more and move forward.
So is it like refining your practice,
Yes.
refining your modeling, your coordination, all of
Yes.
those sort of things? Yeah.
Yeah, and at the time it was mostly with the first contract that we have, it's mostly just trying to survive.
Yeah.
Because if you remember those times,
Yeah.
a lot of nurses, they left the
Yeah.
profession
Yeah.
because first of all, they don't want to get sick.
Yep.
They don't want to die because at that point when we didn't have the vaccine yet,
Yep.
you get COVID, you're
That's
done.
what you thought. Yeah.
Yes.
Like, I remember my daughter's, young. She was 21 at the time or whatever, when she was the first one in the family to get it. And at that time I was working at a COVID operation. She got COVID and like, I was almost paralyzed for the day. Like just like you said, like
Yeah.
I didn't
It's a
know
death
enough about
sentence.
it yet, but I thought it was a death sentence
Yeah.
for, touching on COVID. And it's one of those things where like, maybe there's trauma to a lot of people,
Right. Yes.
I'm sure there's trauma to a lot of people. And sometimes, especially like people like me, we want to put trauma and like not really think about it.
Right. Right.
But if I can, kind of pry into that a little bit with this compromised population of people that we care for,
Right.
people who have kidney failure, their immune system being compromised.
Absolutely, yes.
If you're working with somebody with chronic kidney disease, it's like, well, they're going to get sick easier than
Yes.
everybody else, right? Which means then those who are caring for them are also at
Yes.
risk, right? And
Absolutely,
I
yeah.
saw people,
Yeah.
full suits, for, close to a year, right?
Right, yeah.
So that's what you guys were out there doing.
Yes, absolutely. And then there were times like I have one nurse in ICU, 5 patient coding at the same time. So
my God.
like, okay, we need dialysis nurse here. And then suddenly this patient is coding in with transfer.
Wow.
That was like one of those days, like you look back and say, how did we survive? And then, of course, there were points where almost all of us, we got sick too with COVID.
Well, I was going to ask
So
you.
we just rest for 10 days and then we go back again because there's nobody else to do it.
Did you guys have any loss on your staff?
Luckily, no, but almost all of us got COVID at that time.
Yeah, yeah.
But luckily, yes, everybody, we didn't have anybody that lost a life because of COVID in my staff.
You're in the network locally, right around us. Did you have friends that were talking about in their
yeah.
clinics they lost nurses
Yes.
and techs and social workers?
Yeah, I have friends, doctors
Yeah.
that lost a life
Yeah.
because they took care of a COVID patient. So yeah, we learned so much from that pandemic.
Agreed.
Agreed. It's a sad part of our history, I guess, but at the same time, it made us realize a lot of things that really matter and things that's really important, just how fragile life is.
I agree, and I think it kind of pushed us to a point where we have to look at maybe we're not doing everything right, and maybe some of the things that we say are not okay
Yeah,
should be okay.
right.
So again, we want to get back to personal story eventually, but I'd like to tap into that a little bit. You threw a kind of a phrase out there that maybe not everybody understood, but that the first contract they were bringing it in house,
Right, yes.
and so we're saying a hospital that previously had you contracted as a contractor, as a dialysis provider for them, right? Was then bringing it in to do it themselves.
Yeah, because so when we got in, they already starting to set up. They were using actually. Can I mention the name?
Of device.
The device.
You can mention
Yeah.
anything you want. Yeah, not a problem.
So they were using Tableau.
Okay.
So so they were when we got in, they just need somebody to bridge. So we were thinking, well, right now we don't have any contracts anyway. So even though we knew it's just going to be 6 months to a year, we still took it because there's really
a need
nothing.
also, yeah.
There's a need. You guys need us for 6 months. It's fine.
Yeah.
Because anyway, I got the machine for free.
There you go.
The previous owner, and oh my God, I love those guys. Dr. Kevin Wang, and you probably
Yes.
know
we've talked
those
before.
group of doctors.
Yeah, we talked before.
So they gave me 9 machines to start. So my capitalization,
Yeah.
it's mostly from the payroll.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, might as well use this machine. So yeah, we still did it, even though we knew coming in that it's just gonna be 6 months. But it was a great learning experience for
Yeah.
us. Like we were tested.
Oh yeah,
like,
you put your
how
toes in the
strong-
water.
Yeah,
you
yes,
put your toes,
absolutely.
and look what it did. You were able to
Yes.
take off with it. So you did like a proof of concept, really,
Yes.
with your group, with your partners, and then you guys took off. And I see you doing more than just like the routine dialysis treatment now.
Yes. So I was able to learn all the modalities. We did plasmapheresis, we did CRRT. We're also doing intra-op dialysis.
Right. That's
And
super
of course
interesting to me.
Yes.
I mean, I have all kinds of questions.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
why interop? Like,
Yeah.
please just give me
Yes.
the quick and dirty version of
So
that.
actually, not all cardiothoracic surgeon would utilize the intra-op dialysis, but apparently we also question that. So why do you need intra-op dialysis? Apparently, and I also noticed this when I do my dialysis, when they do an open heart surgery, that you're able to correct acid-base imbalance right away. Because they keep on checking the patient's potassium level, the CO2, and you can pull fluid too. Like if you see like the tank, for the heart-lung machine, that it's overflowing, then you can pull some fluid fast.
Okay, got it.
So I think that's the main reason. Plus, when their numbers are already compromised, it helps doing dialysis because we can correct those imbalances right away, the acid-base imbalance.
Okay. So it's got a benefit to the acuity of that surgery.
Yes.
And the fluctuation in blood chemistries during
Yes,
this. Okay.
yes,
Got it. Got it. I mean, but what's the special training for that? Because I can imagine that not every nurse out there is going to feel comfortable. Like, yeah, I got
Right.
it.
Yes.
I know dialysis. I can do it while somebody's having surgery.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if that's the truth.
It's actually, so I got trained by my senior nurse because we started doing it in our previous contract. So not all nurses are actually comfortable. It's very intimidating because you see all this huge
Yeah.
machine being used, and you see the intensity of, whenever we do an open heart surgery, like you play a big part of, whether this patient is going to make it out or, are you going to help this patient?
Yeah.
So it is very intimidating, and not a lot of nurses have the guts to be able to go there and do it. But it's pretty much almost the same as you do bedside.
Okay.
The only thing different is you don't dialyze patients' blood directly, but you dialyze it through the heart-lung machine.
Okay. Got it.
So,
Got it.
When
So-
they do the bypass, then that's the one that you dialyze.
So there's a need to really chime into the rest of the equipment in the room as well.
Yes, yes.
It's not just focus on hemo machine. There's integration with,
yes.
Okay,
With the
got it.
other, yeah.
we have this podcast because we're really trying to bring awareness to kidney health,
And this is wonderful
kidney illness,
opportunity.
kidney failure, kidney
It is
professions,
amazing, yes.
kidney heroes.
And honestly, I really salute you for doing this because not a lot of people are actually doing some education like regarding kidney disease. What is dialysis? So a lot of times when the patient needs to to do this, they're very scared because
Yeah.
not a lot of information are available.
It's foreign. It's foreign.
So,
We're
I
aligned there.
salute you for at least, doing this and, making sure that people are educated about, kidney problems, the kidney failure and hemodialysis.
Well, I want to ask everybody a favor. When we talk about kidney failure and kidney disease and kidney health and health overall, there's like this audience You know who they
Right.
are. It's people who are sick or people who want to stay healthy or
Yes.
people who are taking care of those who have
Yes.
issues, right? The people who don't have issues don't talk about it.
Right. Yes.
So here's my favor to ask of all of you. Make sure you're following or subscribe to the podcast, that you share it, that you
yes.
haze us in the comments, and make sure that your network is hearing some of these stories.
Right,
Yes.
yes.
Whether it be somebody who's thinking about business and, we're going to go back now and find out
Yeah.
how did you even get into nursing and stuff like that?
Yes.
Because there's not a lot of people, or there's not enough people that are in line to take your position.
Yes.
Like it's not sorry guys, it's not the sexiest profession anymore to
Not
be in
anymore.
healthcare, right?
Right,
Like,
yeah.
hey, it's hard work.
It is.
It's
It's
sometimes
not
scary.
as glamorous as it used to be, I guess.
Well, I mean, it's nothing different, but it's a
Yes.
different time in the world, right?
Yes.
And I want people who actually have the heart to do this to hear of people who are doing it, how they got there, and find their way in. Whether it be to become a caregiver or a nursing assistant or a dialysis tech, which we work with, or go straight to nursing because you're solid. Like, I know that's what I want to do, right?
Right.
Well, hey, you could have been thrown 12 hospitals right out the gate and
Yes.
drowned maybe.
Right,
But you
yeah.
had a couple contracts that
Yes.
gave you the proof of you dipped your toes, right?
Yes.
So I want to tap into that a little bit. One more question about
Yes.
kind of coming in that first contract, because I want to understand your take on technology.
Right.
And you mentioned a specific device, doesn't matter which device,
Right.
but there's a reason why the hospital said, we only need you for 6 more months. Do you feel like dialysis is changing from a technology perspective to where in this specific care setting, let's focus on that for a second, acute dialysis, our providers, is that the mindset that we can do this? When I say providers, hospitals, is that their mindset that we can do this ourselves? Or is it still as it was for many years? And probably the majority of the hospitals are doing this outsourcing to, you mentioned some of the big guys. We don't need to mention who those are, but everybody knows who they are.
Yeah.
And then the smaller and independent and the brand new entrepreneur outfits. Do you see that technology is part of that mindset that they had, or did it have anything to do with it at all?
I think it's a combination of multiple things. First of all, a lot of hospitals, they want to be able to have control with the operation.
Yeah.
But they need the support, like, of a certain department that should take responsibility, making sure that it runs smoothly. And with my company, we come in like, of course, we're an outsider. So sometimes we try to do our job, and we really, we put in a lot of effort to make sure that we deliver the best patient care, that we're compliant with whatever we do. But there's still part of what the administration wants, like they want a full control.
It's still their show, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think, having those, control plus, I think the practice needs to evolve as well. Because like right now, we only know, like my company, I'm using just one machine. But
Pretty much like everybody.
when you monopolize it, you don't have opportunity for growth.
Right.
And they become a little lenient with, how they manage, some of their operation because
Yeah.
they know there's no competition.
Right.
So having to innovate a new machine, and, this is also in line with what you do,
Right. Yep.
having those machine, I think that's great because it's gonna provide an opportunity for everybody to be competitive and
Yeah.
really, deliver the best product.
Agreed.
And
Hey.
it's part of the innovation.
I didn't watch
it's-
any
we
of the
can-
Olympics, but I know there were some badass competitors on there. Like I really like to catch the the clips of the sprinters.
Oh,
and I know there's like some lady sprinters out there that are just like the superstars of the world, but they're driving each other right now, right? Because
Yeah.
they're like in this.
Yes.
I saw you last game.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kick your ass this game.
Yes.
Right. And it's
Absolutely,
going
it's the
back and
same.
forth, right? And
It's the same, yeah.
It is. It should be.
Yes. So you have competition.
Yeah.
And it's part of growing and evolving. You need to be able, if you want to grow and you want to be competitive, you need to evolve.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
part of that is, of course, having, access to something that's innovative and that would also give you this, maybe best outcome for the patient. That's what matters.
Yeah.
Patient safety and, best patient outcome.
You walked right into this one. So what matters is the patient outcome. 100% agreed.
Absolutely. Yes.
I'm not a nurse. I'm not a doctor. I'm a tech, a clinical technician, right? I also have biomedical certification, water certification. And when I think about specifically acute operations over the years and other care settings, which we're starting to look at more now, like the post-acute settings, right? In the skilled nursing facilities. And then we look at like the chronic setting, there is a definition that home is within that chronic setting, right?
Right.
But what we've seen for all these years, and I need your opinion on this, is that the scope of practice for registered nurses, and then the conditions for coverage from Medicare somewhat restrict or limit what dialysis technicians can do under the licensure of the nurse.
Right.
So we're in California, Southern California. We've seen shops that run all nurses. We've seen shops that run nurses and techs and have different models of running treatments in certain den settings and different parts of the hospitals, like tandem treatments, things like this. What are your thoughts on technician involvement in acute dialysis treatments?
So honestly, when I started my company, we're all purely nurses, and that's also in our contract. But eventually, I was able to get contract that they allow tandem.
Yeah.
When your census is so high and you need to be able to, finish a lot of patients and make sure that you deliver a timely manner of treatment, utilizing a tech on a tandem is very helpful.
Yeah.
So, but it's not applicable in all settings. Only for those like maybe more stable patients, or the room has to be in close proximity.
Yeah.
So they're still under the supervision
Like
of
line
a
of
registered
sight.
nurse. But so far, the tech has played a big role in our practice in some of my contracts, and they really made sure like we're able to finish all the patient as ordered, and we deliver treatment that's in timely manner. So if there's an opportunity for us to get a contract that would allow tandem, I will definitely welcome that. Also utilizing a multi-treatment room,
Right.
because then you
Then,
maximize
absolutely.
the nurse,
Yep.
your RN. At the same time, you utilize the tech.
Yeah.
So you avoid delay of treatment. So
Agreed. When I think about the utilization, that's one piece, but then like the actual scope of a tech. So I've had, I've been training techs for 25 years, and many of them have come in. Oh, my aunt, my uncle works, acute. I'll make more money than I'll make in the chronic. That's what they used to tell me, anyways. I'll make more money in the acute than I will in chronic. But then when I spoke to them about their job duties, they were quite often much different than and more limited than what a tech would be doing in the one of the dialysis centers, right? In some cases, they weren't cannulating, putting the needles in. In some cases, all they did was, kind of logistics of machines, disinfect, move them around, set them up, stuff like that.
Yes.
Is that what you're seeing in your practice as well? You kind of have to kind of carve up the responsibilities there?
Yes. So actually, I utilize tech two ways, like to prepare the machine and then to move the machine around so that the RN can maximize her time. Instead of using her time and energy moving those machines, cleaning the machine, disinfecting the machine, I'll have a tech that can do the same thing, and so the nurse can be more efficient, with her time.
Yeah.
At the same time, I also utilize tech, to run a treatment, mostly monitor. And if it's a fistula, then they're allowed to cannulate and monitor a patient.
Okay.
And, of course, if there's any fluctuations, I always tell them, make sure if your blood pressure is like this, you have to let your RN know. And it has to be somebody that has experience as a dialysis tech to be able to run a treatment.
So that's a great that's another thing that when people come in and say, I'm going to go straight into acute, it's like, oh, actually they're, the acute program's looking for somebody who's very well versed on the device.
Right.
And is going to be, almost the encyclopedia for the nurse.
Right.
In many cases. Because I know a lot of acute nurses that don't know how to set up the machine who work with tech programs. And I know a
Right,
lot of
yes,
chronic
yes.
Dialysis nurses that don't know how to set up machines as well. So let's shift the focus of, I want to understand like kind of acute practices and yes, it's mainly registered nurses that are delivering, they're the license behind the care.
Right.
They may be collaborating or being supplemented by technicians, biomedical technicians as well. You mentioned that it's an experienced dialysis tech that has to come in.
Right.
And-
They have to run a treatment.
And they have to run a treatment. So the value of the tech is that they know how to run these machines in this setting.
So we actually have like a job description and a checklist. And there's like a parameter or job description or responsibilities that's listed. They should be able to do those competently.
Okay.
If they're not able to, then we cannot allow them because
Got it.
this is acute. There, it's a different ball game than the chronic.
Yeah.
So they have to be, well equipped with skills and knowledge to run a treatment, and they should pass our checklist.
Competency checklist.
The competency checklist.
I think we're going to have a guest join in. I'm sure he'll have something to say about this because this is something I'm very passionate about. And you said you started a school out in Victorville.
Supposedly.
It's all coming back to my head now. I remember it.
We had that conversation because
I remember
we
it now.
remained in.
I remember it now. So when I think about my years as owning a business in the vocational sector, right, especially around dialysis, I've been able to work in education and other type of organizations really, really easy. But dialysis is hard.
Right, yes.
To make the connection between schools or people that are trying to build people and then the people that need those people.
Right. Yes.
And we had this prior to us starting this conversation of producers and promoters. So I kind of want to like make this analogy, right?
Right.
If I'm a producer of care, legacy dialysis, right?
Yes.
Do I have any responsibility to promote the education?
Absolutely. Being a healthcare personnel, every day is a learning process. We have to learn every day. And that's why it's always important that, we as a provider, we also educate our nurses. And at the same time, we also need to educate, the nurses.
Right.
Because a lot of times too, like, although they're already an RN, but they don't have any experience yet.
Yeah.
So sometimes we would recommend, go for a training so that it would be easier for you to find a job, whether it be in my company or other company. It
Yeah.
makes you more
Yeah.
viable, to work in this specialty.
You've ran chronic before too, right?
So what I do is sometimes I do the chronic, but majority it's always been acute.
So let me ask you this, and I'm focusing on the text for a selfish reason, because I'm a tech.
Yes.
And I want to see the profession advance. And you said it, like to be an acute dialysis tech, you got to have experience. So my question is there anything different on that checklist and that competency requirement for a dialysis tech than is in the chronic center?
Actually, they're pretty much the same. The only thing maybe that's different is, of course, you have to set up everything on your own, like the RO and, of course, like the machine. Unlike when you're in the center, that everything is just there and you just have to string the machine and,
Right.
prime your line. This one is you're going to be setting up the whole machine and the RO system.
Yeah.
That's the only thing different. It's still the same, you monitoring your patient, cannulating, all those skills and the knowledge that you need in taking care of a patient on dialysis.
Yeah. When you talk about the difference, those connections and things like this, let me just tell you, there's a few schools that are approved to educate dialysis techs in this state. I own one of them, or at least, a percentage of one of them.
Okay.
We don't teach that. So here's my challenge and my charge to you is, can we collaborate? And is there people on folks that can collaborate to where in our lab here, people are learning up front about that part of it? Because you're right. I think experience matters.
Yes.
But if we're not preparing these people for the expansion of their career, like the pickings are hard.
Right. Right.
And the same goes for home dialysis. Sorry. So it looks like we've got a guest going to join in with us, Pago. All right. So we actually had this gentleman with us, I think last week, if I'm not mistaken, but also very experienced dialysis operator, as many years as the two of us, probably more,
Yes.
In the space, Richard Vanderplas. I don't see your handsome face. There it is. Hello, Mr. Vanderplas.
I don't know which way to go, but there you go.
Wait, what are you talking about, man?
But no, the headshot. But pleasure to meet you.
Likewise, sir.
Congratulations on what you're doing. And my first impression when you were talking, you were saying this was early on in the conversation. You said I was very concerned because I'm only a nurse and to start the business. You're not a nurse. You are a nurse, but you're a nurse with a vision. Never
Thank
just
you.
say that. I get mad at technicians when they say I'm just a technician. They're not just a technician. They are actually there to take care of our patients. So never, ever say that. You are a nurse with a vision. So I appreciate what you do.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you for saying that.
So PJ, one of your techs, acknowledging that it was 13 years ago, I guess, that he went through our training and he's thanking
You
you
did a wonderful
for
job with it.
letting you be a part of his family now. Great guy. I know
Yes.
that. And
He's amazing.
PJ, good to see you online with us. Richard, we were just, I know you're passionate about this, and I'll have to pound on it a little bit more, Maria, with Richard. Like, Richard's been really instrumental in advancing the acknowledgement of the profession, actually, downright to like helping with writing some of the items on the exams as part of certification, serving on different committees within the state of California, and now I think, different national organizations as well. So the acute dialysis, Richard, and kind of the nurses only, then some tandem treatments now. Any feedback on that? You've seen different models. You've probably ran some of the models. What do you see as far as the value of dialysis technicians in acute programs?
Yeah, so I've been in the industry since 1980, so I've seen a lot. I was interested because you mentioned a couple different providers. Tabla was one of the ones you mentioned, and I know JACO is way different than what we have to deal with in a chronic facility and what you have to deal with JACO, because they don't understand dialysis. They think it's just some taboo of we're going to require you to do X, Y, Z. I have many fights with various providers about requirements, and I won't even mention it because last time I was on Mike's show, I mentioned somebody I shouldn't have mentioned. But anyway, so my question to you is, what are your challenges with the hospital systems and what they require? Because they have to go through JACO, and they're going to require stuff from you through different providers of what machines you have and what they're going to ask of your staff, and asking you to actually have technicians involved with nurses, which I think technicians almost in some points know a lot more or have a better connection with the patients than some of the nurses, because they're dealing with multiple patients when the technicians are actually going to each patient and having the relationship. So I'd really love your answer on that part of it.
So, like I mentioned earlier, I utilize a technician two ways. They can be a support for the nurse to set up the machine, test the machine, and then the treatment is being run by an RN. When the treatment is done, when the nurse just need to terminate the treatment, give the report, and then move on. So the aftercare, the pre and post aftercare of the machine is being taken care of by a technician. So no
Right, but
patient care.
What challenges you're getting from the hospital though in terms of JACO?
So far, maybe the challenges, it's not so much from the JACO, but it's more on like the hospital sometimes with the volume. So if we have a lot of sudden influx of the patient, and we need to be able to make sure that all patients are done, your stat patient are being done in a timely manner, then sometimes getting the administration to be able to support that can be challenging. But I was lucky enough to get a contract wherein they allow a tandem. So it's something that's within my contract, and they allow it. So there's no really issue. In terms of JACO, as long as it's in the contract, it's really not a concern for them. And especially, if everything that we do is within standard, no patient safety issue, the outcome are good for the patient. They really don't look at who is the one that did this treatment when there's no issue or there's no problem.
That's been my experience as well.
Yeah.
Is it's got to be explicitly laid out in the contract.
Yes.
I mean, just like our policy and procedure would be, the trumping factor in a state survey in an in-center, right? So that contract, that third party contract with the hospital is now established as policy and procedure of that care model, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So they will not question that. That's the first thing that when they come into the hospital, they will ask for the contract, and make sure that if we do everything by the contract, it's something that there should no be issue.
How about you, Richard? Did you experience challenges with tech and programs?
The biggest challenges for us was we had to teach JACO what water testing was going to happen, what ROs, when we change filters, JACO doesn't understand that because they don't have that relationship. They don't have that same skill set. They're just looking at, okay, what is the directions for use, or and so we had to fight for, all right, LALs were done here, cultures are done here. We're supposed to disinfect here. When is the machine going to be PM'd? What's going on? They don't get it all, so you have to go and explain it to them.
Yeah, a lot of
as
teaching.
a provider.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, sir. My experience in the last few years, and with my 12 hospitals, sometimes they come in almost every year or every 2 years, depending on, what is going on. Each of the surveyors have tracer questions, so they know exactly what they will look for.
Yeah.
So they will look at your documentation, your pre-dialysis. What are the things that you check for? Your chlorine,
They're looking for
whatever
a trigger.
the testing that's needed.
Yeah.
And then they look at your PM result. That's why it's really important. And I think I mentioned that earlier. Like the documentation is very important because those are the things that they will ask for. Like, how do you clean your machine? How do you make sure that this is safe for the patient?
So let me just kind of back to, because we're going to still get back to history, right?
Right.
But Richard started as a tech, and then I know I don't know how many hundreds dialysis facilities he's opened. I actually used to work in one of the two of the dialysis facilities that he ran. But he started as a dialysis tech out of family need, and was introduced to dialysis. So I might work in a dialysis center if I'm a dialysis tech, or if I'm a dialysis nurse. I might work in one of these strip malls, right, where outpatient, and they have methods of documentation, right? Which I can remember this like so vividly when electronic medical record rolled out and they wanted us to start using it. I was like, this is the stupidest thing ever. I hated it. Today I love Excel sheets and data, but it was painful for me, Richard, to adopt EMR, right? But then when you look at like patients who do home dialysis, then there's always this thing of like, oh, how are we getting records, right? And then when you look at the what's going on in the hospital. It's like, okay, they have an EMR.
Right.
Then now there's a dialysis provider coming in, and is it a mixed bag of how you document? Is sometimes it's you've got your own flow sheet, paper documents, and other times you have credentials on their electronic medical records. Is that safe to say, or?
Actually, it depends on the hospital. We still have hospitals that utilizes the EMR, and the Epic is
Yeah.
the most popular one.
Yeah.
And there are those that we still do the paper documentation. But we're always open because we're familiar with all programs, for EMR. So it actually depends on the hospital, which is the preferred way for us to document. So if they tell us we want it to be, EMR, then, we train our nurses how to document an EMR and make sure that we're compliant.
Yeah.
Because that's the big part of how we get paid.
Yeah.
If you don't document, it's not done.
Right.
Therefore, you will not get paid. So I make sure like all the nurses are trained how to document an EMR. And so it's a mixture, depending on which hospital we're contracted with and whatever their way of documenting. Because
Richard,
there's still hospital that's still doing paper.
yeah. Well, there's still a few dialysis
Yes.
clinics too, which I was surprised by. But Richard, you've probably seen your share of electronic medical records. Is it safe to say it's Apple versus Android when you go EMR to EMR? Like you're using Epic today, you're using Pearl tomorrow, Cerna tomorrow. Is it Apple and Android, or is it night and day?
Yeah, we have 7 clinics here in Southern California that are using a different system, and then in New Orleans we're using Epic. So I understand the whole situation. It's difficult because nobody looks at it the same way. So and trying to teach these EMRs what we need, and they're just like, yeah, we need to give the hospital what they need, and you're just going to be a side piece. And
Yeah.
I don't mean that in the wrong way. I'm just saying you're,
makes sense.
you're an extension. But I guess, part of what I wanted to ask was, what are your challenges with the EMR that you're having to deal with in terms of the different, hospitals you're dealing with and the challenges you have to go in? Because I'm sure they're not all 12 hospitals that
Yeah,
you're in.
not all
are
the
the
same.
same.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So what challenges do you face as a provider?
I think mostly it's also compliant on the part of the nurses. Because the documentation can be extensive sometimes.
Yeah.
You have to document here, there, and they can document some part, and sometimes, not all of the parts that they should be documenting, it's missing. So I guess as a provider, that would be one of my challenges, make sure that all the nurses are compliant and they document properly. And one way, for us to, make sure like we motivate them is like to make them understand, like, documentation is the very important, piece of what we do.
Yeah.
Because it is what is gonna save you just in case something happens with a patient.
Yeah.
It is what's gonna, protect you.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you make sure that you emphasize those with them, then the compliant is better.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm just also lucky, like some of the nurses that I work with, they have, they really like family. So they care about the company. So of course, if I tell them we will not get paid if you don't document,
No
then they
loose
start
ends.
doing their job.
No loose ends. Yeah. But
Yes.
that's one lens, and I think that's a very motivating lens. I mentioned that when I first ran into EMRs, I hated them because
Right.
I was on the end of having to put everything in, right? When I got to the position, and Richard, maybe you can chime in on this, and Maria, like when I was actually looking at the data that went in on a broad scale, and Richard, you got 7 clinics that are scored, right, with QUIP and all the other scoring
ratings,
metrics
yeah.
that we have out there. That's the other lens, right, is wanting to see a collective improvement in everything from anemia
Yeah.
management to patient satisfaction, right?
Right.
So I've actually really come to appreciate it, and I'm wondering if that's maybe a missing lesson for some of our techs and nurses. Is this is what it looks like when I'm looking at it.
Right.
Maybe it's a physician, maybe it's a health plan, maybe it's a company, COO. But when I look at it, this is what I see.
Right.
If you don't put in the good data, I can't make good decisions
Absolutely.
for the population as a whole, right?
Yes.
Okay, I want to get off the acute, but before we get off the acute, I want to ask you both, what's the biggest missing the biggest missing component to dialysis care in acute settings today? Missing or the most critical talking point today? Biggest problem out there?
I guess for me, it's mostly compliance of the patient. Because even before, like, they get to a point that, they're full blown, stage 5, there has to be some issue with compliance there, compliance with the diet,
Okay.
and not necessarily being non-compliant because maybe they also don't know.
Right.
So part of that too is, education. Like, make sure, like, we educate the the community about what is hemodialysis, what is kidney problems, and what can trigger.
So you're still thinking way upstream that,
Yes.
before they get there, that's where our problem is.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
So when they're educated and they know exactly, what are the things that can lead to this problem, maybe they can make some changes that will avoid them being a dialysis patient.
Excellent.
So yes, I guess education and compliance are two main
Upstream
challenges.
prevention. Richard,
Yes.
Labor
labor.
and reimbursement challenges with who we have to hire, how they should be paid, and if we don't get reimbursed for it, these patients are not going to be taken care of. They're going to end up dead.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be.
Hey, sometimes the only way to get the true point across is to say it. Maria, we ran across each other recently, and just stuff that was going on here in California. Richard, you saw all this going on. A bunch of hospitals went on strike, and I don't know if the conscious decision was there that, like, I'm gonna leave those patients to dialyze, to not get dialysis. But that's what the reality was, right? And I know that you came to bat. We crossed each other's paths,
Yes.
and
Yes.
it's one of those things that's what's on my heart as well. Is people need care, and I'd agree with both of you. Like, the upstream side of the argument, nobody can argue that. Like, we've got to do a better job on educating people, and the people who need to be educated actually they need to know they need to be educated, right?
Right.
Two, on the side of what my feeling is, the biggest issue right now on the acute side is I feel like it's labor too, and everything around labor.
And I didn't even practice that, Mike. We didn't even talk about it ahead of time.
I paid him before. I paid subliminal messages or something. But so let's get off acute dialysis and get to some real stuff. The stuff that we've got a family here. We're trying to make a real community, and
Right.
We want to talk about the stuff that only people that like us are listening to, right? But
Right.
also we've had professional athletes, we've had business leaders, we've had a slew of different guests on here. And I usually start by saying, hey, give me the cliff notes, Maria. Like, tell me, because you mentioned you've been a nurse for quite some time, a dialysis nurse for quite some time, enough seasoning to say that you're, comfortable with owning a business now. But how'd you get here? Like, where are you from? What's your background? Like, who influenced you to be this person, this nurse, this go-getter, this partner to people that are really depending on you now for their livelihood and their lives in the service that you give. So give us the breakdown.
So, it's sometimes topics like this can make me a little emotional, because I have humble
let it go.
beginning.
Let it go.
Look at Richard.
Let it go.
Well, prior to me being involved with being an entrepreneur, I had my own battle with cancer,
Oh my goodness.
and I was at the point wherein I didn't know if I'm gonna make it.
Yeah.
And luckily, I made it, and I'm here.
Lucky for all of us. Lucky for all of us.
Sorry.
Pablo, do we have
No,
Yeah,
dude, you should look.
tissue?
But what made me realize, when you're at the point wherein you didn't know if you're going to be able to survive cancer.
Yeah.
You learn to appreciate life more. And then every day is a gift.
Yeah.
And it also makes you realize that to not take life for granted. And because of that, I was thinking, how am I going to make a difference in other people's lives? So because right now I'm on my borrowed time, and this is my second chance to life. How am I going to make a difference in other people's lives? So when I got back, after I was in remission with breast cancer and I survived that, I got an opportunity to run a program. At that time, I was the charge nurse, coordinator. And as much as initially, before I got sick with cancer, I just want to work. I don't want a responsibility. I just want to work and then go home and not think about work. But if you are handling, if you are in a management position, you take with you the responsibility. But I was thinking, how am I going to make a difference in other people's life? I have to step up. And the company that I work for, they needed somebody to run the program. So I said yes. And that's how it all started. I gave everything with that company. And unfortunately, they decided that they want to close. And it was during the pandemic. And so I was thinking, either I will do it or I'm just going to walk away and, work for somebody else. But I'm also thinking during the time, I saw there's really a need for a company that's going to deliver the best care or a quality care, somebody that maybe, can, if not surpass, but at least deliver the same quality of care that the patient deserves. And because it was the pandemic, there was a need for it.
Right.
And I guess from then on, that was my motivation that maybe, because of what I went through, I want to be able to live a life that has purpose. I it's just not about me anymore. It's about, how I'm going to be able to impact, the community and have, positive change in the community. And at the same time, make me realize, things that's really important. You're not a superficial anymore. You don't care about material stuff anymore. You value more what the experiences and relationship and and things that really matter.
I'm sure this is, I don't know what you guys are thinking, but when you say, this battle brought to enlightened you
Yes.
to not take it for granted that
Yes.
you're on borrowed time. None of us are any different than that, right? You had an event in your life that blew it up for you, but we shouldn't have to have that event, right?
Right.
To think the same way. Tomorrow's not guaranteed
Exactly. Yeah.
in nobody's life. And when you say, live a life of purpose, it makes me think about just all the bad times that probably everybody here can say, yeah, I had a bunch of them. And even as an entrepreneur, I've had a bunch
Yes.
of bad times, right? So it can become very, I think, discouraging when you're on those bad times and you feel like,
Yes.
I wish this never happened. But you just told us that it enlightened you
Right.
in a way that without that, maybe the impact that you're having on this world wouldn't be as big. I'm not sure. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
I'm trying to think about it that way. It's I grew up hard.
Yes.
My dad, my mom, mistakes and good and bad times, my own personal mistakes, many, many, as a father, as a husband, as a business owner, as a friend. But the destination, what do they say? The destination is actually in the journey, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
So you're I'm really thankful that you shared that experience with us. I mean, it speaks volumes as to why you're moving so quickly.
Right.
You know, I wish that wasn't the only, you know, wasn't the motivator, or
Yeah.
that you didn't have that experience, but it's pushing you in a way that you're moving at a pace that our local community needs.
Yeah. And honestly, maybe if I didn't have that that experience, I don't think if I'm gonna be the same way.
Yeah.
Because like sometimes you just hear them, you know, like, you know, don't take life for granted, but it's just a word. But when you're actually there, you
Yeah.
experience it, and you know, you don't know if you're gonna be able to still be there tomorrow
Yeah.
or the next day after.
Yep.
It really changes you. It changed me. It you know, it made me. I'm already a go-getter even before I had cancer, but it made me more like appreciate like the importance of every day. Like I need to do something that's meaningful.
Yeah.
You know, that's gonna have an impact, and because tomorrow, like I said, it's not promised.
Yeah.
So how do I make my life this time with purpose? Because I don't know until when I'm gonna be here.
Right.
So might as well, you know, be a positive change, be kind to everybody, and you know, like I said, live a life that has a little bit of purpose, and you just don't focus on things that sometimes they really don't matter, but we feel like it matters. If you understand what I meant.
Oh, I really do. Was that Jill?
Hungry chili.
Yeah, Jill. Hi, Aunt Marian. Maria Damian. Glad to,
Oh,
to see you here.
Ate, get it right.
Ate, I got bad eyes. Yeah. Richard.
Hi, Jill.
Richard knows what's up.
I miss you.
And Hungry Jilly. Hi.
What a community, Maria knows Jill. Hungry Jill.
Oh, you do? You know Jill?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know too, Jill. Oh, okay. She's
That's
from
great.
San Francisco.
That's great.
Ate, and then I'm boss because they always.
Boss Richard.
You're my boss too, Boss
Richard.
Richard.
So Maria, Richard, you know, maybe we can kind of take this back. You know, again, Richard, I know your story, and I've hung out with a lot with Richard. I've only had a chance to hang out with you once. I know you're
One
super
time.
super fun, very high spirits. Well, before we started here, we had some music on, and Maria's actually a very good singer, guys. She outperformed.
They all are.
Outperformed Paco.
Don't go to the bar.
I wish.
Karaoke. You would get thrown out of the bar.
So I know she's, you know, there's when you talk about living a life of purpose, like let's go back, okay? Let's talk about before you're a nurse.
Yes.
Like, what did you like to do? What was your stuff? What was your thing? Like, who's young Maria?
Yeah, but young Maria. Oh my God.
Uh-oh. Wait,
I'm
hold on.
very. Yeah,
This is
I'm
rated
already.
G. Here,
I'm
by the way.
already. Even as a young kid, I remembered because I didn't live a life that's easy. It's always been hard.
Where did you grow up?
In the Philippines.
Which part Philippines?
Well, actually, I was born in Manila.
Okay.
But then my dad, he moved here in the U.S. And my mom was the one that was left to support.
Sorry, we're
three
laughing because
kids.
my wife is chiming in here. Richard's laughing too. He's married to a Filipina and he can't say ate, shake my.
Shaking my head.
Now she wants me to learn. For the last 10 years she's been, or 15 years she's been saying like he can't know anything because then he'll know what I'm saying when I'm in front of his. Sorry.
Right, yeah.
Sorry.
All right, babe, I'll get it right.
So you know, as far as I can remember, like even as a kid, like I've always been motivated. All I did was like I wanna finish school. So I never really had like a lot of fun because I'm so focused in finishing school. High school is the same thing, and then college. You know, of course, that's why I was able to graduate right away. But I remember my mom. My mom is, you know, she is the real epitome of resiliency and so much humility. And she will always tell me, like, sometimes I would ask her, when is this going to be over? I'm just tired, you know, not being able to afford the things I want.
Yeah.
Because, you know, as a teenager, you want certain things and
Yeah.
we can't afford.
Yep.
And so she will always tell me, it's going to end soon. You know, you just have to be patient and work hard and make sure you finish school. So she has been my inspiration. and she's the one that guide us through until I get to a point. But as a kid, I always remember I've always been a go-getter. I wanna do a lot of things. I want to be successful so that I can help out my family and I can have a better future for my family and of course my mom and my dad. Although I didn't grow up with him, but my mom has always been somebody that's constant in my life. Until she passed a couple months ago.
So sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm still a little grieving.
No
so.
need to be sorry. It's 100% human emotion, and I saw, because we're connected, and I can only imagine how you're feeling. So it's very recent.
Yeah.
Thankful that you're here to share with us,
Yeah.
in spite of kind of what's still fresh.
Yeah, a little fresh, because she's the only constant person in my life.
Yeah.
Since of course I was born, she's always been there. And even I got married, she lived with me, and here, when I was battling cancer, she's my inspiration. She's the one that pushed me through so I can survive this. And of course, with my two boys, the love of my life. And
How old are your boys?
I have a 28 and 22.
Just like that's hard to believe that you have like
thank
grown
you.
ups.
They're the one taking care of me now.
All right. Well, that's as they should. So did
I
you,
have
did
my
you become a
humble
nurse in
beginning.
the Philippines?
I was a nurse too in the Philippines, and actually, after I got done with school and I became an RN, life was good, because some of at the time there were a lot of nurses. There was like oversupply of nurses. But I've always gotten a job. I always had good job with connected with a lot of hospital and good experience. But part of me that's being a go-getter, I was like, I was okay there, but I feel like I could do a lot more.
Yeah.
And that's when I decided to come here in the US and start my life here.
Where did you start in nursing here? Not in dialysis right away, right?
No, I started in a nursing home.
Okay.
So like,
Hard work.
Yeah.
Hard work. Yeah.
So you can imagine how difficult that is. Like sometimes there's one RN, one LVN to take care of 100 patients.
That's insane.
And being and the only RN that's working, you have to document like 3 pages, of patient. So it was difficult, but at the same time, it's something that I had to do because at the time they were my petitioner.
Okay.
So I had to,
So you
to
came
comply.
on what type of visa did you come on?
Actually, I initially came in with B1, B2, and then adjustment of status.
B1 is
Tourist.
yeah.
Okay. And then while you were here, you applied for the H1B1?
No, it was adjustment because I already have green card.
Got you. Okay.
So adjustment of status.
So does it turn into EB3 or now it's a status?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Got it. We talk about this often, and I think I had told you that recently participated in acquisition of a company in the Philippines and
yes.
really focus on overseas Filipino workers. It's really disappointing that it's so difficult today to move through the H1B1, EB3
Yes.
process, especially for nurses, because we just said it, like one of the biggest problems we're facing in healthcare and well, I'd say across healthcare especially,
Right.
is a shortage of people who actually care and want
yes.
to do this, right? It's not sexy anymore. So
Absolutely, yeah.
the people who want to do it, and actually there's over 1 million Filipino nurses that are, I think it's closer to like a few million that are working in call centers
Right.
in the
because
Philippines.
they
Paco, we
can-
know about this, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so
I have no idea.
I'd love to kind of see some movement towards,
Yeah.
opening that up a bit for us. It's kind of cool because as I'm watching some of the people in the chat here, we talked about the text, and it sounds like you had this strong inspiration to be a nurse from a very early age.
Yes.
So you went for it, right?
Yes.
We know some people who have started their journey and maybe are going to continue their journey as dialysis technicians. And when I'm looking through the comments, I'm seeing like several people that I just love if you could share with us, guys, like who's a former student of dialysis education services, who works with
PJ.
Maria. I know PJ.
Yeah.
Ruben Maldonado's been joining us, and he was one of our first batches. So yeah, chime in if you're in any of the comments. Let us know that you're a former student, and just really happy that you're still in our community.
He doesn't want to read it because he can't say ate. So
Yeah, exactly. I mess up with the word out there,
If they
right?
want to inquire about how to become a dialysis tech, numbers on the screen.
Yeah, so I don't see the number yet, Paco, but we'll throw up the number. Oh, there it is. Just below our logo, you've got the number for the training institution, dialysis education services. There's a shortage of techs too.
Absolutely, yes.
You know, even, especially here in Southern California. I checked the other day, and it's close to like 200 openings right here in Southern California.
Yeah.
So it kind of drives me back to, like, I just want to tell a story because Richard will, I don't know if he's going to blow me up on this one, but when I started my first business, that leap, right? I was like, I remember one day being on a construction site because I was working in construction while I was trying to open the business. And doing all these applications with the state and telling everybody, hey, when I get this thing, I'm gonna quit. And they're like, you're full of shit, Morales. Like you're gonna be out here stuck with us doing this, and you're gonna be dirty. You know, your hands are gonna be dirty for the rest of your life. And I got my approval one day, and I quit.
Oh, wow.
Right, I quit. Yeah, I went straight for it. But you know, looking at the biggest struggles for me in that business, like we talked about some of the staffing and the compliance and stuff in acute. For education at the time, there was not really any openings. Like people could fill their dialysis tech spots. I know Richard was one of them because that's how we ran across each other. It's like, yeah, we got it covered. We don't need a connection to a school, right? And at the time, there were like 20-something schools in Southern California teaching dialysis to technicians. Today, there's like 4 that are approved, right? Today, there's a shortage. Today, there's a need for connectivity between vocation and education, right? It's a little bit slow. You know, we've seen a big change over the years where I was literally like pounding on the head or on the door of Richard's company one year, right, Richard? Like pounding it down like I'm a crackhead looking for crack, right? like, hey, I know you got some in there.
We don't want to go down this.
It's okay, man. It's okay. It's okay. I hope everybody's watching and we can talk about this, right? But
no, I'm gonna save it when I'm in studio and we can have this conversation.
But you know, we know the same people too,
Yes.
Maria, and you know, in recent years, the doors have opened to students finding clinical rotation.
Right. Yes.
Because it's like, hey, we want to absorb these people, right? People who invest their money or in their time in education are great candidates, right? When you think about dialysis technicians coming into a dialysis facility or into an acute program. So when I talk to you, I think, you know, I'm in alignment with you that there are skills and comfort needed in acute dialysis that's probably requires some experience.
Right.
I would say for me, the gap is that we don't have acute providers trying to bring that all the way up front with providers like us in education to say, this is what we need from right up front. We need to plant this education with people before they get out in the field. So when you have enough seasoning, they can actually fall into acute operations and know about water connections and
Right.
backflow preventers and these sort of, and different ways of documentation, right? When I think about the chronic centers, you know, opening the doors and committing to hosting and providing experiences for these individuals is super important. So some of the people that are with us, that was, you know, a critical component to their training was getting an actual chronic experience. So I'll tell the quick story. I won't blow it up too much, so I ruin it for when you join us here, Richard. But you know, Richard was at the top of the company, or is at the top of the company, but it was a different company at the time. And you know, we had a couple conversations, and I'm just trying to, you know, keep the conversation going, but I got to follow the right channel, which you have to do in healthcare, right?
Yes, yes.
I think like a crackhead looking, you know, pounding on the door like crackhead, like, I know you got it in there, let's get it out, right? So I'm like banging on their door, like, hey, I know you guys can take students. And yeah, I rubbed everybody the wrong way. But today, everybody's knocking on our door. Like when we have students in class, we already have organizations calling us saying, hey, who do you got? What area? Do you have people here? And there's still openings, right? So it's like it's almost like a big hole that we don't have enough education, enough people signing up for education to fill that hole. So when I shared earlier with you guys, we're trying to bring awareness about wellness, kidney awareness, kidney disease, kidney failure, but also that there are professions that if we don't fill that hole, like Richard said, if there's nobody to take care of the people when they need their treatments, we have a big terminal issue. So I'm curious to both of you and anybody who's online with us. It seems that there's not enough educators anymore. So like the internal thing of like, we'll do it ourselves is becoming harder and harder. How do we get organizations connected to places like dialysis education services and make it the right mesh, you know? How do we make sure that you as an employer are saying, hey, I know I have needs over the next 5 years. I know where to get them. And let's bridge that gap. Richard or Maria?
So I guess on my end, since I'm running in multiple programs, I will always have a need for an experience, dialysis RN or dialysis tech. And honestly, like what you just said, right now we're the one doing our own training because if you're an RN, you actually don't need to be certified.
That's right.
Automatically, you can work as a dialysis. You just need to be trained and make sure like you know what you're doing. You're able to do the checklist. But the one that's probably gonna, because they're forced to be compliant, it's more on the centers. Because in order for them to be a dialysis tech in the center, you need to have that certification, and then it's gonna force them to really, be a part of, get that training, be part of the school so that you can be certified. So I guess it's more on like education regarding the availability of the service, that you have this you have this training available, so that when they go into to work in certain organization, that they're equipped with the skills and the knowledge, and they're able to do the job, and they're certified, which is the most important thing in order for them to even be able to work. On a smaller scale, I can probably begin tapping that resources with you. Like instead of us training, we can just send them first to your school and offer some incentive to maybe pay for it.
Right.
Because
We'll
it's
show
going to
you the
save us
lab,
time.
but I was thinking about this I would imagine you guys train them kind of live fire. Like there's a lab right next door to us right now that has a station of 8 that they could run around and act like they're in a center and learn how to really set them up, tear them down, things like this.
Okay.
Richard, you've seen this battle with me. I don't know if I've ever asked you it like directly like this, but what's the secret to getting people who are paying or investing their time in educating themselves because they want to do it, and it's coming out of their pocket, and they're not being incentivized? It's not on the job training, right? What's the right way to get them integrated into the vocation?
Well, I have a question first for our guest, and then I will answer your question. But in California, we're very challenged about labor laws. And in the old days, we used to pay per case. Now we're facing overtime laws. And you already know what those are. After 8 hours, time and a half. After 12 hours, double time. So, and frankly, some of the nurses milk the treatments back in the day to get, So how do you handle that part? And then I'll answer the rest of his question.
So what we normally, because actually I have, like I said, it depends on the hospital, on the model that I use. In my other contract, what we do is we only have a technician for 8 hours. So after 8 hours, they have their option to take, to stay and be paid overtime. But if we don't need them, they don't have to stay. So that way, I don't have to, be in trouble for not paying overtime,
Yeah.
because it's something that we really have to, to
It is a
be compliant with.
challenge.
Yeah, some people have been
Yes.
hit some mom and pop shops have been
Yeah.
hit pretty good with some of the repercussions of
Right.
not complying with HR
Yes.
laws properly, right?
Yeah. So, and actually, that's one of the other lesson that I learned from the previous company that I worked for. Challenges like what you just mentioned.
Yep.
And so we have to do it right for my company. So
Yeah.
that's why, we have to be compliant with, the labor laws and make sure like we implement them. So
Yeah.
we pay our nurses, overtime pay or whatever the case may be.
No, I agree, but so my experience is we had dens in certain hospitals, but we also had to go room to room. Room to room is basically grabbing a machine from a room, taking the supplies into the room,
Yeah.
setting up the machine, doing the testing, dialyzing the patient per prescription, quote unquote, because I already know what that already looks like.
Yeah.
And then strip down the machine, disinfect the machine, take it back to the room.
Right.
That is a long time, and believe me, more than what they say that they're actually doing. So again, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but they'll do 2.5, 3 hours when the treatment's supposed to be 4. And I already know what happens. I mean, they just want to get in, want to get out. We have challenges with hospital, the water pressure,
Yeah.
the RO systems, the connections, the toilets, run the hose down the hallway, whatever it is. I mean, there's so many challenges within a hospital that we have to deal with many systems. And so I've always wondered why the hospitals don't do their own, let's train the staff in the hospital and let them do their own thing. But no, they want to go and hire somebody, a consultant or somebody to come in, a contractor,
Yep.
and they want to pay you something, but they don't want to pay you the right amount.
Yeah. That's been
That actually
a big problem,
that
right?
You should be paid. And so now we're dealing with I'm not getting paid enough, and you want me to do all this extra stuff, including paperwork, having to deal with JACO, which I brought up earlier. And so what are the solutions? The solutions are either the hospital takes it over and we train the staff. Staff doesn't want to deal with dialysis. They could care less. Maybe an ICU they can do, LVAC or whatever they want to do down there. You can train those staff, but they don't want people to go in a room. They could care less. They want their staff. So there's a big disconnection. Look, in 1980, we used to be paid $5,000 a treatment. One treatment, we got $5,000.
She's like, oh man.
Oh, I wish I started that early.
Now we can't even get paid
Yeah.
for what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So in my opinion, all the things that you were talking about, all the salaries, all the things that we need to deal with, this is not our problem. This is a government problem.
Yeah.
We need to get paid more. For what
Richard,
we do.
so you mentioned let's get the rate that we need, right? I've seen some contracts that it's turning from one to another, right? And it used to be with, let's just say, a bigger player, and the rate was big player rate, and then it's now okay. Now we're looking at a different layer of a different tier of player, and we're not going to pay that same rate, if that makes sense.
I can almost guarantee you I can name her rate, and I'm not going to do it on
I probably could too,
But I
just
can
knowing
name
some
her
of the. Yeah, let's not do it on. Let's not do it on air.
No, I can
Maria's
name
like,
her
yeah,
rate.
I don't like this guy
can name
anymore.
her rate.
Basher. I'm just kidding.
So Richard, answer my
Well,
question.
okay, can I just add something? You were mentioning earlier that sometimes they'll have to cut corners so that they can save time.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you do.
No. I'm just gonna explain to you
How you address that.
I want to address that. Because I think it will boil down to your own conscience.
Yeah.
To your own work ethic.
Yeah.
If you feel like you're getting paid to do 4 hours and you're just gonna do 2.5 hours, so I'm not gonna deny the fact that maybe there's some nurses that will do that, but I don't want to assume that all nurses do that,
Right.
because I really feel like, especially in my team, I have great confidence with them that the patient's best interest is our priority, and if I want to be rich, I'm not gonna be doing this business.
Well,
For me, it's not just about money, as much as money is important. But it's not my end all and be all.
I know a little bit about your We've chatted a little bit,
Yeah.
so I don't know how much you want to tell, but like,
Yeah.
it's Richard's managed thousands of
I
workers,
think
right? Like,
Richard is
how do you
more
trust,
on
right?
it's more on chronic. I'm acute,
He
so
is.
we're different.
Oh no, I've done acute
Are
too.
you-
I've been in
okay.
many hospitals. So
Okay.
But
I know
what's the
people say-
way that you get that partnership, Maria? Because
Yeah.
that's what I want to
That's
tap
the
into.
other-
Is
yeah, that's
how
the
do you
other-
how do you get that partnership from? Because it's easy for me and Richard to say, like,
Mm-hmm.
I run a tight ship, and nobody cuts any corners, right? Nobody skips the test on the
Yeah.
dialysis machine. We do it every single shift, right? Nobody skips conductivity or pH if that's our policy. Nobody write down what the last person wrote
Yeah.
in their water logs, right? That's what we like to think. But if we went and watched stuff, we see people doing stuff. So
Yeah.
what makes you so confident that you have that partnership with them, that they're actually going to do the right thing?
Yeah, and I think it's also important that they have accountability. It's their license. If they don't do the testing, something bad happens to the patient, it's gonna be on them, not on me, because I have my policy that they're supposed to do it.
Right.
Plus, you mentioned about partnership, and I have great confidence with my team because most of these are also in partnership with the company.
Right.
So most of my work, the nurses that work for my company, they're also partners.
So they're shareholders in some
So
form or
they
stock.
have different level of commitment. They have different level of I don't know, for whatever
good.
reason. If they
Skin
know
in the
that
game.
it's theirs,
right?
they move differently.
Yeah, skin in the game. Yeah, skin in the game is
Yeah.
a good thing.
Right?
So,
Yes.
So I mentioned earlier, kind of a joke, but
Yeah.
Have you guys ever heard the term, like, everybody eats? When I learned how you're doing business, I kind of felt that way. It's like Richard's saying, skin in the game, but like, yeah, everybody eats.
Yes.
Is what I'm seeing you doing.
Yeah.
So there's another layer besides your hour, 2, 3 hours that you spend with me, with the people that you work with, right?
Right,
And
right.
again, we don't need to get into all the details, but
Yeah.
you engage on a different level of contracting with your people.
Right.
They're actually partners with you.
They're partners.
Yeah,
Most
yeah.
of them are partners. So
Which is good.
they move differently
Yeah.
when they know they're part of it. And if you know that you're part of the organization, you want to be successful, right? You don't want that partnership to fail.
Hey, if everybody had shares in the business, they'd be working to make sure there's a profit. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And they learn to be more efficient, and they take care of the contract.
That's right.
Because if they lose the contract, then we have nothing.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
think
my company has. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but my company was 92 facilities, and all the doctors were JV partners. So they have skin in the game. So they're going to admit patients. They're going to do the right thing.
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a lot of companies that don't do that. I guarantee
Right.
you, I've been in a lot of different acute situations.
Yeah.
The nurse goes in there for 2 hours. She says, well, I've been here for 4 because it took me an hour to set up and 30 minutes to break down. So I've been here for 4 hours. What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
patient only had a kilo to lose. There was nothing. They're not, and basically they have,
Yeah.
again, I shouldn't say this, but one
That's a
one foot down
reality.
the drain, one on a banana peel. So basically, it's
Unfortunately.
that's the way they think.
Unfortunately, yes. I have to agree. So that's why, I really feel like the business model that I'm using, it's
That's
hopefully, it's working because you're part of this. This
Yeah.
is yours too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you need to be able to help, and make sure that we all succeed. We're all winning.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
that's amazing.
guys, we're running up on about
Sorry.
an hour and a half. I had a question for Richard, but Richard, have you thought on that one?
What was the question? Now we've been down
So,
the road.
so the challenges that vocational education has had in the past with dialysis specifically, and the landscape looks a little bit different. Like, how do we even push the cart even further to really get people into this profession that are supposed to be in it?
So Mike, look, you have an amazing school. We've seen a decline on people that are enrolling in schools in general.
Yep.
And the reason is, in my opinion, is that you can get paid $22 working in and out and go be a technician and make 23. So why not flip burgers? And so, again, I go back to reimbursement and dialysis really needs a change. So I think our focus needs to be on how do we get to the government to pay us more money, because they went from one direction all the way to the other side. And you see it with Kaiser, you see it with Ochsner in New Orleans, you see it with Blue Cross Blue Shield. All the insurance, they're like, oh, we're going to be smart, we're going to pay you XYZ, and
you got to save some money.
and back in the day we used to make money. Now we're losing money. I'm losing every Medi-Cal treatment I'm doing in an in-center. I'm losing $70 for every patient. Every treatment I'm doing, I'm losing $70. Where do I make that up? And everything's going up. Supply chain is going up. Labor's going up. Rent's going up. What can I do other than just shut down facilities, and these patients will have nowhere to go?
Absolutely.
So how do we change that?
So actually, that's one of the many challenges that we face. Like, when you don't get enough reimbursement, some of the clinics will have to close.
Right.
So where are those patients gonna go? They will go to ER and utilize ER as a chronic.
And then that's the
I've seen that
spike
many
in the health
times.
cost, right?
Yeah,
super big spike.
They crowd ER and utilize, the ER as their clinic.
Well, we've seen quite a few clinics locally to us. I mean, in the last 2 years, right?
Right.
Close their doors, and
Even big providers, not even just small.
Right. Yes.
I won't even mention their names.
But I hear the mix is part of it, right, Richard? I mean, when you talk about the pay mix in California, like, it can be fairly grim.
Right.
If I go to Casper, Wyoming, I can make a lot of money because everybody's, basically a private insurance. And I have 50 patients, but 30 of them have private insurance, so I'm making a lot of money.
Well, let me chime in on that, and this is a conversation I'm in a lot. So you hit it on the head, Richard. It's like, well, I make 24 at I'll just throw something random at the warehouse, right? I know one specific warehouse, and again, I won't drop a name, but like a shipping type of organization that it was like, well, I can get a job here and make more than a tech. And then I just saw that whole operation get replaced with robots, which was somewhat sad that so many people lost their jobs. And now robots are moving all of these packages around faster than a human being could do, right? But when I think about, okay, well, I'm a CNA, I'm an MA, I'm a phlebotomist, something along these lines, right? And then I think about the dialysis tech specifically. Richard, that's where you started out of necessity. It's where I started out of necessity. Richard sitting here with a testimony that he's run, I don't know how many facilities in his lifetime, but at the peak, close to 100 facilities at once, Richard?
I've built 56. I was the 101st technician at 15 and a half in my life.
15 and a half
years old, sticking needles.
Yeah. So it was a very humble beginning, again, by necessity and, circumstance that turned into this with his father, right?
Yep.
It turned into this career, and he's touched I don't know how many human beings' lives in the form of delivering care that they need, and then employing a workforce of, I would imagine, thousands over these years, and giving them the ability to put, a paycheck on the table, find benefits that might take them to the next step in their journey. If they're saying, I became a tech because my mom, my dad was a nurse, a doctor, and they said, I got to be a nurse. But, I came to the U.S. And it was actually pretty expensive to go right there. So I dipped my toes into a big organization, right, Richard? And it's $23 an hour, but I know where I want to go. It's not that I want to make, $25 flipping hamburgers. I want to do
Yeah.
something that is going to lend towards my eventual
Right.
desired outcome or planned outcome,
Yes.
right? So for me, like, I feel like that's a very, very big attractor, or should be an attractor for people who are wanting to come into healthcare to say, maybe I should look at dialysis technician, because it is that dipping the toe in the water. You have opportunities to grow as a tech, right? Richard, you're still a tech, right? I'm still a tech.
Yeah, I'm still a tech, but my passion, as
No,
you know,
but.
Michael, is I could give a hoo about the money I make. I make a lot of money, but my passion is for the patients. My passion is for my dad that passed away. My passion is for, Mr. Smith that sat on the corner. My passion is for every patient that we take care of. And we were talking the other day when I was on a couple of weeks ago, was these young people just want to get in for a paycheck. No, I'm here to take care of our patients, and I don't care what they have. I don't care what I need to do. Now I'm going to get emotional, and I don't have any Kleenex because I don't have any Kleenex boxes.
We didn't
around,
send
but-
you any over there, man.
Exactly. But
Let it flow. Let it flow.
No. This is what it's about. I implore me and Michael will sit in a corner somewhere, and we're sitting talking about what we need to do for our patients, what we need to do for the people that we care for. I don't care. I don't care about my title. I can be chief bottle washer.
Yeah.
I can be. I walked in a facility that literally I was the CEO, and I walked in and stuck a patient because he was standing there, and he was 30 minutes late for his treatment, and everybody was busy because he had a sick call. And he looked at me like I had 3 heads, and I went and stuck him and put him on the machine. And I hadn't done that in 7 years, but I still have the passion has to be there. And until we get that passion back with our people, all the things that we need to do in acutes, all these people, because if they go into the hospital, they have other issues, not just, having to go on dialysis. They got, whatever the other issues is that they're in the hospital. And when do we actually realize that we need to do what we need to do to take care of another human being? And that's my passion. So
I love where it came from, Richard. I mean, again, I wish we didn't have to go through these things, right?
You're right.
But that's part of where you're at, Richard, and you know that. Like, that's part of why I'm here as well. I got to think that, there are a lot of people like that have a circumstance just like Richard. Actually, I don't think
That's
I know a
our
lot.
why. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We have our own individual why.
Yep.
Why we're so passionate about some
Yep.
things.
Well, his passion comes from his love for his dad. Mine come from my love for my uncle, right? Which is how we were introduced. And question that I think we can kind of roll off the cliff here and round out the cast here. But what do you guys think? Because over the years, and it's becoming more and more frequent, that we get phone calls and people signing up in my business to train as techs that are dialysis patients, transplant recipients, the wife of a dialysis patient, husband of a dialysis patient, daughter of, I had the craziest thing happen to me. I got to tell this story because it hit me harder than anything I think has hit me as of recently. I visited one of the new classes that started here just to say hello. We have instructors. I step in every now and then and say hello, right? So I came to step in and say hello, and there was a young lady there. Everybody's sharing their story, why they came to the class. And she says, I came to the class because, X number of years ago, my mom passed away, and she used to do dialysis right there in front of St. Mary's Hospital in Long Beach, right? And it's like, I used to work there. What year? Oh, this year to this year. She dialyzed this year to this year.
This is
And then she goes, yeah, her name was, so-and-so. And man, it smacked me in my face Like, I remember this person face. I remember their voice. I remember their first fistula cannulation. And I remember this little girl coming in like, what the hell is all of this going on with my mom? So I said the last name, and she broke down. She said, nobody knows that last name. That's her maiden name. That was my mom.
Oh, wow.
And it was incredible feeling, guys. Just, what we're talking about is like, there are people passionate. This girl came back how many years later to do something in the memory of her mom. Mm-hmm. And holy crap, I was the one who took care of her mom.
Wow.
Like, I'll never forget that.
Yes.
That's part of my why. Mm-hmm. It started with a personal thing, but so many people come here and say, all those people are somebody.
Right.
Just like your dad was your somebody, Richard, your mom, your children are your somebody, my uncle, my parents, my kids are my somebody. Like that's what I live for, guys. So when I'm pestering you guys with these questions about how do we get people in, like last question, how do we get those people in? Like, how do I, I'm asking you guys a personal favor. How do I enlist you and you, Richard, to somehow talk to these patients? And I have all these ideas in my head should we be talking to social workers about methods of finding funding, which is available through like Department of Rehabilitation for people who actually care. And it means something too. So any opinions on patients becoming providers of care for people that are suffering the same thing that they're suffering, family members like us that I think the passion's there. Now we just got to give the tools, right? People who have got kidney transplant, these sort of things. What are your guys' thoughts on it? Does it seem like something that you could get behind as far as like, we always talk about rehab, right? But we rarely get the sense to see a full rehab for people.
So
I already know she's going to answer first.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna let her.
but
I already got that. I was like, she's going to go first.
ladies first.
There we go.
But
Always.
honestly, it's part of the education that we do, rehabilitation, and if you feel like this, patient or the family, when they engage during your education, you can already tell if it's something that they will consider or they're passionate about. And sometimes going through these things, it's make them more realize that, hey, I want to also make a difference in somebody else's lives. And this is something that, I want to be a part of, because they knew what the struggle is of, somebody that is going through dialysis.
I actually met a class yesterday, same thing, 2 people, daughters of patients. And like just first day talking to them, the emotion that came out was like, oh man, thank you, Lord.
Yeah.
Like, we got some winners here that are going to be able to take care of people.
Yeah. So I guess, it's again going to boil down to like educating and making sure like that there's going to be a resources that's available, that if this is the career that they want to go through, there's this school that's offering this amazing class that, that's available for them.
I did not pay her, guys.
Yeah.
She got the script down. She got it down on her own.
Later, we
got
can
the
talk
script
about
down.
this.
All right, she's like, yeah, we'll talk about the finder fee. But no, I really, this is kind of recent thought for me, Richard. You know how my thoughts are. They move all over the place, right? And it was like, we've had a lot of people coming in, and there is funding for this. So it's like, if I'm thinking about, if I'm a social worker in a dialysis center and I got a patient that walks in and, drives themselves to and from, and it's like, I want to work again.
Right.
And, maybe there's an opportunity. Like, this is an area where you could do it. You're capable. There's funding for it.
Right.
There's a school that is approved for funding. Those sort of things. So, all right, I did my job.
Having those informations available, because not everybody knows that. They will think, oh, how much is going to cost me?
That's right.
And having that information that there's actually a funding available, educating and awareness is very important.
Yep.
So, we just have to spread the word.
Yeah. Richard,
and make sure that everybody's aware.
any experience with that, Richard? You've hired a lot of people. Any patients or family members?
Hey, Paco, just delete this part of this project. So, yeah.
Guys, this has been like super, really a great conversation. I want to leave us on a less serious note. So, Richard Vanderplas, I know for many years. So, and some of the audience knows him from a previous visit now.
They know me for 40 years. So.
Yeah, I know you. I know he's a fun guy, right? And he does more than dialysis. Richard, I'll haze you a little bit. He's talked retirement a few times, but like the call of the wild, nope, you're not going anywhere, buddy. You're stuck in this industry, right? But I know you got like entrepreneurial ventures going on, different sort of industries. Maria, we've talked about some of yours. We didn't get a chance to talk too much, and I'd like you to tap on it because it seems like it's probably the more fun thing for you. Maybe it's fun, maybe it's not. I don't know. But the producer,
make it happen. I want to end this. I want to end it good. Everybody knows me.
Well, hey, if you watch Maria socially, which I do, I'm a stalker.
You can be my stalker anytime.
I see plenty of
Maria,
business
come
and
to
growth.
Vegas. We can have a good time.
There we go.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
What is it? RHA coming up. End of September.
Oh.
But I see that you're out and about. You're working with the shows. You're tell me a little bit about that side of it because I don't want to do it any injustice and get the wrong terminology.
So aside from, it's not like I'm not too busy yet with what I'm doing in the medical field.
Yeah.
So, but actually, for me, it's part of being a holistic approach. During the time that I was dealing with the cancer, what really helped me pull through, aside from the love and the support from my family, are like entertainment, like watching show, like watching video that
Smiling,
can
laughing.
Yes. And it's very therapeutic because instead of you thinking about, oh my God, I'm dealing with cancer, am I going to survive this? Then you have a little distraction.
Yeah.
And we all know like the therapeutic effect what the music can do to an individual, you know. So in some ways, I think it's part of my holistic approach to taking care of people, not just my patient, but as to relieve stress for me and the nurses that I work with. So I started producing concerts and shows. And I have my own entertainment company. It's called Legacy Entertainment Production, wherein aside from the show that I produce, I also manage artists from the Philippines or locally as a bridge to, Hollywood. And I sign up with some talent agency that work with me to give opportunities for the artists that I manage.
Okay. So you're supporting people's dreams.
Yes.
Giving them a platform.
Yes, giving
But, so I got to tell you, I often wondered this because just like you said, like you're super busy. You've got 13 hospitals and just a coordinator of a program has got this crazy life. So I'm like, you must have set up your operations really well to be able to have the time for therapy.
Right.
I didn't realize it was therapy. I was kind of like going like, why would she be producing shows? She's like and I got to say this, guys, like, I met a lot of celebrities in my life, two right here in the room, right? I am never starstruck. Ever. Ever.
You're not starstruck with Paco? Come on. Come on,
Like,
Michael.
well, when I met him, I didn't know he was a star, right? And until I found out. Now I want to hang out with him all the time. But, like my wife, she's got friends who've got kind of high profile rappers and things like this. And we go to birthday parties and stuff. And, I remember one time taking my daughter and her boyfriend to a party and they're like, oh, they want to take pictures. And I'm like, oh, God, that's so embarrassing, right? But Richard will know this name, and let's do a little bit trivia dialysis, okay? Formulator of KT over V and PCR tests. Richard, go. Who is it?
That's for her, not for me.
How about you?
We actually don't do KT over V in the acute.
So,
Yeah.
really weird that, I would know this, right? Like, who the hell knows who made up the test, right? John Sargent, Richard. Remember our buddy John Sargent?
John Sargent, yeah, back in the day with QMS, right?
Hey,
You're
man.
lucky to meet that guy.
Well, yeah, but, it's like, who's going to be starstruck by John Sargent, Richard?
Only you.
No, nobody. He was a guy that was in jeans and
Yeah.
didn't give a damn about.
Had a glass of wine with him all the time. He's a great guy, smart guy. When I met that guy, I was starstruck. I'm a
was back in-
dialysis geek.
Yeah.
So, like, to be honest, like, I've been watching you all this time just going, like, your biggest flex is that you're a nurse. But you got this story, and now the legacy kind of, I don't know if it makes sense to me or not, but after hearing some of your story, it makes sense.
Oh,
Am I getting it right?
yes. Thank you. And thank you for acknowledging that.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about the purpose, and I mean, now all of this makes sense, what the legacy is about. It was good for you. It can be good for others. And Richard knows this, and some of the audience with us. I've ran skilled nursing facility home. When you say music is therapeutic, holy crap. I never realized how much therapy
Mike,
music
go
offered.
to the Philippines and sing karaoke, and if you can't sing, they'll kick your ass off the stage. So.
Yeah, I tried it.
No. I've been in Guam, and I had to sing Barry Manilow, and at least I could sing a little bit. So yeah, I was okay. But there's a lot of Filipinos in Guam too. So
Yes.
Yeah. So, want to give some last words here, guys. If you had to say at this point in your career, let's put the value on the journey. You gave us some words, but let's get a final thought on that, Maria. Putting value on the journey. Let's go and talk to. We have a pretty young audience demographic here, so let's go talk to the 20-year-olds that are not thinking about taking life for granted, but they're trying to live for the moment. Richard, the 15-year-old that maybe doesn't have the same sort of experiences that you and I have, and everybody in their family is in perfect health. What do we leave with our audience to make sure that we look at the journey as really maybe the destination?
yeah, ladies first. I'm not getting my ass.
Thank you. Well, like you said, sometimes it's not the destination, but it's the journey, like how you handle life. And life, it's so unpredictable. You don't know what kinds of hands you're going to be dealt with, but just doing the best you can and try to be kind along the way, because you don't know what people are going through. And just enjoy the journey. And if there's anything that I learned in all of this, is just I try to manage my stress level and focus on always the solution, because there are many things that happen to us, it's beyond our control, and I don't want to be stressed with things that I cannot control. So what I focus on is, how do I move forward? What is the solution to this? If I cannot change this, what can I do that I can control? So that has helped me deal with whatever stress that comes my way, or whatever issue or whatever problems that comes my way. And I do that in a daily basis. Like, something happened with the patient, there's a complaint. There's really nothing I can do about that. It has already happened, but how do we move forward from this? What do we learn from this situation? So by having that mindset, it has helped me deal with, a lot of things, and just enjoy life, and, don't take life so seriously, because otherwise it's going to add more to your stress, and that won't be good for you. And me being a cancer survivor, I already know like what stress can do to my body. So I try to, as much as I'm in a position wherein I deal with a lot of stress, one thing that helped me is learn how to deal with it in a way that it doesn't have the negative effect on me.
Great advice. Richard, same last sentiment here, please.
Oh my goodness. So I was just sitting here as she was talking, reminiscing, and I said, when I was 15, well, actually 13, when I was in the industry, we had no Epogen. There was no ESA. We were given blood transfusions. We had no bicarb.
Yep.
Patients were throwing up. Patients were cramping. There was blood dripping from the ceiling tiles. We're in a world that you're living today. If you're in dialysis, all the things that you have today are because of what we did 30 and 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Don't ever forget what people did for
Yes.
what you're getting today. We've all suffered. I've been through everything. I've been through all of the bloodlines. The bloodlines came in a venous package and an arterial package and the IV line and the transducers and everything came in separate packages. We put all that together. And now today you have all of that stuff in a package. You don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So always remember the people that came before you. And it's not only in dialysis, in life in general. Your parents, they've done things that you always challenge, but they've done it. They've been there. Never forget what they've learned over all these years. And all I say is, please remember that we are here today because of what people have done in the past.
Richard, you just gave a lot of wisdom, but you also made me think of some horrible thoughts because I had to think about what my parents did to get me here. Oh, gosh. Oh, man.
Sorry. No tissues for you.
Yeah, but I took a few notes here. I love the advice on the stress. Something that
Congratulations on your cancer. You're gonna she is a fighter. She's not gonna
100%.
She is not going anywhere.
If anything to stress about, I mean, you definitely. But you took the lens on life of what I cannot control and what I can control, circumstance and reaction, right? And I'm just gonna speak from my own personal emotion or experience with stress, which I've got a long history of anxious disorder, general anxiety. Exactly what you said is the only way for me to deal with it. Is you are stressed because there's something that you can do that you're not doing. And if it is something that you cannot do anything about, you got to let that go. Some people have faith in a higher power or in a person or in the universe to be able to let that go, and others don't. So kind of going back to something we signed off last week with, family, health, and faith. Those are important. I think we all got that from the collective here.
Right.
That it's important. So if we can keep our lens on those things and doing what we can and letting go of the things that we can't. You said you have 2 adult sons.
Yes.
One adult son's hard for me. I love that guy. He's brilliant. But man, now I know what my parents were talking about, Richard, when they said I laid awake at night wondering if I'm going to get a phone call.
Your daughters are amazing, but they're a handful too.
Daughters too. So I got 4 kids, and 3 of them are adults, and it's not any less stressful than it was when they were kids, because now they're making decisions on their own, right? So
Yes.
I love the stress and the solution comparison you made there, and that if you can do something about something, do it, because it's going to get to you. It's going to eat your ass up, right?
Yes.
Richard, the roads that are paved from others, I happen to love history and everything that I can learn about. That was my favorite topic in all of school, history. dialysis. Maybe I'm a bit of a nerd, but most of us who are passionate probably know the stuff, right? Like Willem Kolff and Belding Scribner and, when the first dialysis treatment. So I think about that too. When Medicare was enacted, the Entitlement Act, and when it could actually be paid for. Thinking about my own family, Richard, and like you, having to get blood transfusions every couple weeks and how he told me he felt and how the doctors told him he'd never have a kid because he actually had no libido until Epogen came around, right? Bicarbonate introduced into dialysis treatment. So thinking about those roads that were paved, Richard, I can remember a day when I was working in clinics that I used to show the video. And if you guys haven't seen me mention this before, there's a video on YouTube called Who Shall Live. Richard, I'm sure you've seen that.
Yep, they used to have choices. You're dead. You're gonna live.
Pretty much.
They're gonna pick and choose who's gonna actually, shunts, Bentley buttons. People don't even know all the stuff that accesses that we actually had back in the day that nobody even knows about.
I used to share that documentary in the clinic floors and let the patients see what the history was, and they would be like, "Oh my God, we used the words take for granted." Quite often, I think that's the perception we have here in the United States, even around care, right? It's like, well, I have dialysis treatment, and but there was a time where people actually didn't have it. So those roads that were paved by others, Richard, like, I don't think it's just it's not just us.
I mixed a bicarb with a wooden paddle.
with a boat oar, right?
With a boat, yeah. Exactly.
But I think about it. It's not just the scientists and the innovators and the professionals that are the ones who paved the road for us. The ones who paved the road for us were also those first people who were selected in the research committees, the people who were not selected and went home and died. You know what I mean? So, like, I agree with you, Richard. We need to keep sight of that. We shouldn't let that history go. We should take it as a challenge to improve the way that we, the stewardship that we have over the Medicare budget and the Medi-Cal or Medicaid budgets. I think that we should exercise that. We all have a good chance to have our voice heard really soon here in certain elections coming up, but we should stay active in that. If we care about healthcare, we should be looking at what's impacting us moving forward.
People like her, we're going to actually be good. If we can get more people like her to actually take care of our patients, then we'll be good.
Agreed.
It's going to be a challenge.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sir Richard. I look forward to meeting you in person.
We'll definitely
come to Vegas.
He's
Let's
trying
go.
to get you all the way to Vegas. Well, we'll do that too, and then
I think at one point I plan on coming in one of your events in Vegas.
RHA. So there's RHA coming.
Okay.
We'll definitely put something together, and we're actually trying to put something together.
Sorry, Mike.
Get together here with our guests as well. Again, super intriguing podcast with you all. A lot of good sharing. The stories have been great. Look forward to the introductions and Paco as well, and everybody who joined us tonight from the normal crew. Thank you, all the new folks. Thank you as well. I want to sign off with just a last thought from what both of you, a combined expression from both of you. I am very lucky that I still have two parents that are living and married to each other, which is also very lucky here in the United States, right? The same parents, right? They had me very, very young at age, in their teens. They're still together today. I'm so...
Can you do me one favor? Can you hug your mom for me?
I absolutely can do that. And this is what I'm trying to emote here is that, I have kids. I wanna have the same thing. I still have two living parents.
You're lucky. Indeed, you're lucky.
Yeah. So, thank you guys for sharing your stories with me. But also thank you for sharing with our audience who, I'm asked for the same favor that you go home and you hug your parents tonight. If you still have two parents, go hug them both. If you've got one, go hug them. If you've got an adopted, go hug them. If you've got somebody who picked up the reins for an auntie, an uncle, a grandma, Richard, ate.
All I have is my kids and grandkids. Both my parents are
And it
No
goes
longer
both ways, right? Let's go hug our parents, but let's go hug our kids too. This is
All I care about is my grandkids. I can give a damn about my.
oh, cut it out,
Yeah.
man. I know better than that. Like Richard's just egging us on here. We know how you are. As a logistic coordinator of Legacy, I'm very fortunate to have all the supply readily available. So very good. And again, it looks like your team is solidly back. They got your back.
Oh, thank you.
I know that's
I'm
a result
fortunate.
of you having their back as well. Any last words from the two of you or anybody online? Paco, Janelle, Nurse J, Jill, Ruben, PJ, thank you all for joining us.
Yeah, Paco just erased the stuff that I wasn't supposed
Yes,
to say.
sir.
And if I come in town, which maybe soon, I want to make sure that there's no Starbucks cup in my corner.
Yeah, well,
I guarantee you that.
It's clear it's water bottles only for you, man.
Whatever.
All right,
Oh,
yo,
you're
well,
getting-
say that again, Richard.
No, you're good. Just giving Paco a hard time.
Well, again, want to sign out from Musings with Morales. Thank you to our guest, Maria Damian.
Thank you.
Richard Vanderplas for joining us virtually again. Our producer, Paco Chaga, and especially all of you who keep chiming in and adding to this community. Make sure that you're sharing so that those people who are not interested in hearing about healthcare but are interested in you can get a little bit of an introduction on what we're trying to achieve here as far as the voice the collective
Yes.
voice that we're trying to share. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
This episode has been brought to you by Dialysis Education Services.